So I got to, and also just opened up the chat box. So I'm gonna come back and explain the chat box and what we're going to do with that each week. So first, I'll just kind of start off introducing myself. I'm Dr. Matt Posey. I've been with Fort Hayes now for 5, maybe going on 6 years in the program. Also serve as an academic advisor. So some of you guys I might have met when we've done the interviews. I've teamed up with Dr. Brooks, Dr. Moore, and Dr. Yang on that. And so in the LRL program, if your last name ends with M all the way through Z, I'm kind of the go-to person for you as far as advisement. And then Dr. Brooks will have the first half of the alphabet. So it's good. I recognize your names, several of you on here. So it's good to have you in class this summer if I haven't had you before. Just a little bit about me. I just finished my 30th year in public education. So started off as elementary teacher, got into school administration. Been building level principal at the elementary, middle school, high school, and then also superintendent. Currently serve as superintendent now and do the Fort Hayes thing in the evenings on the side. Enjoy doing it. Kind of got into it about 5 years ago. Also, with my background in special education, how I got into that after I finished my doctorate, I went in and went back to school. Always had an interest in school psychometry, psychometric services, doing all the testing for special education services, and I've been doing that for several years as well. I contract out and do that on the side, private testing, and then when the school district I work for gets into a bind, I'll hop in there if we're running close on deadline. So done a little bit of everything during that 30 years. So it's been a great experience. I kind of want to talk to you tonight, spend our time just kind of going over the course, make sure you guys understand how this course will work. Um, Also go over some expectations as far, especially in the summer. Doing 805 in the summer sometimes might be just a little bit more challenging, but it's very doable. I will work with you through the process and help you out because we will have to, one, make sure that you have a case study student that you can work with, that you have access to. It'll be a student that attends your school in the summertime, always allow a lot of flexibility because I know you may not have that accessibility. So I've said, hey, if you've got a neighbor that has a student, where you can maybe grab them and use them. If you have a relative, a niece, nephew, something like that for the summer course, that's acceptable. And also in the summertime, I've even allowed them to, if they didn't have access directly to the student, but they had a connection, I would let them do that to where they could practice the assessments virtually, like doing Zoom meetings with the student to kind of practice giving the assessments. So this course is a lot of a practical application, learning some various assessments. We'll learn or work with 3 major assessments. This summer, we'll start off with informal assessments, then we'll move to what we call norm referenced assessments, and then also curriculum-based measurements or CBM. So you will have some hands-on practice with those. I want to back up to the second one that I mentioned, which is the normed reference. That's the one that oftentimes maybe causes a little bit of challenge, especially in the summertime, because a lot of our normed reference assessments, you have to have additional training, special credential certification to do that. Okay. If you don't have access to working with a school psychologist or school psychometrist, don't worry about it. It's not a deal breaker for this class. I have an alternate assessment to help you out, to help you meet the requirements for that particular assessment or that assignment that we'll work with. So don't stress over that this summer. Okay, I've got an alternate form. It's in the course shell. It's already ready to go for you to access when it comes up time. Another thing I kind of wanted to do tonight as well is go over the syllabus, kind of show you the various assignments where you can locate the materials in the course shell, and then also talk to you and show you a little bit about the point breakdown for this semester. I mentioned the chat box right off the bat. This is a new format. This is something that we did a little pilot on back in the spring. And then Dr. Brooks got with us, and we're doing this in all the LRL classes. So we have weekly participation points. Okay, and it's set up to where you're going to have to either attend a Zoom live if you can't because of work, um, or you have other family obligations. We always record these. They will be posted as soon as class is over. We'll do our Zooms on Tuesday this summer. So we usually go about an hour, and then I will download it and then upload the Zoom recording into Blackboard. So it should be on there on or before 8 o'clock p.m. And then it will be available for you to review until midnight on Friday night. If you attend that Zoom session like you are tonight, I will always ask you, and I'm going to ask you to do it tonight over in the chat box. Put your name and what section you're in. So I do one Zoom link. I've got 3 sections this summer. I've got BC, BD, and BE. Okay, so I've got C, D, and E. So if you would put Cass C, your last name, and then section BC, and then I will copy that, I will automatically go into Blackboard on the weekly participation, and I will put your points in for you. So your weekly participation is done. You won't have to worry about it. Okay, does that make sense? Everybody with me so far on that? Just like you're doing there, I can see it in real time. And then I will automatically tonight go in and I will put your points. Each week, your weekly participation points, it's worth 18.75 points. Okay, over 8 weeks. If you choose not to attend the Zoom live, or if you don't attend the Zoom live, you can go retrieve my recording of this meeting, and there will be 3 questions for you to respond to over this information that I go over in each Zoom. So tonight, the 3 questions will be basically over, the course, the syllabus review, and the point breakdown, a little bit about the assignments. Next week, we'll be over the assigned readings for that particular week. So if you aren't able to make a live session, you can go and retrieve the recording. And as long as you do it on or before midnight Friday night and submit answers to the 3 questions, you'll get your points. Okay. If you're with me live, all you gotta do is put your name over there. You're good. You don't have to do anything else after that. Is everyone good and follow me on that? So for all you
Dr.
guys on,
Posey,
yeah.
I'm wondering, does it matter if we direct message you or do the chat to everyone? Does that matter to you?
Either one. I just prefer, it's easier for me to keep up if it's in the chat box because I can just copy that, put it over in the document, and then go on the roster and just give you your points. Does that answer
Okay.
your question, Mary?
Yeah.
And it's being recorded, and if I miss anybody, I can go back and look at the recording and see it in the chat box too as well. So that's why it's good there, and that way I don't miss anything. So all right. And then if you do miss and you have to go and click on the link that says week 1 participation, answer the questions, it will submit it in Blackboard. I'll go in there and review it, give you your points. But that part's got to be done by Friday at midnight. Okay. The one reason we were doing that is we were finding a lot of people were just not going back and watching recordings and all that. And then they would email us a lot of questions that were covered during the class. We met with them, and we really find that when we get into the class and start having Zoom meetings, a lot of times we'll get into some questions and maybe a little bit of discussion, and things will come up. And that's really when you learn quite a lot of information that maybe is outside of the actual course shell itself. So it's good to collaborate. It's good to network. So that's why we want you to do that. The kicker to that is, after I've said all that, if you simply choose not to do either one of those, either live participation or doing the questions, and you don't do either one of them, if you ace every assignment in there, the highest you can make is a high C. It's set up that way where you're going to have some participation in there. The best you can do is a high C. That makes sense, what we're saying? So again, we think it's very important, either way, or doing the response questions. That way you watch the video feed. So I just want to make sure everybody's good on that and that they understand the purpose of that. Okay. So looks like most of you got your names in there and for tonight's participation. So you'll be good to go, and I'll have that loaded in there and put in. Okay. So some of the expectations, attendance is one. Okay. We want you to attend and be active and be engaged. Next thing is assignments. The way I've set up the course shell, guys, all your assignments through the course except the final. Okay. All of them except the final will be due on Sunday at midnight, on or before midnight. Okay. I do that. That way, if you have things come up during the week, it gives you the weekend to kind of catch up. Okay. I know life happens. I know things goes on. So that's why I always do all my assignments on Sunday at midnight. The only one that's not will be the final project or final assignment you do, which is the mock IEP video at the end. And that is due like on a Wednesday, the week of finals, because it takes quite a bit of time to go through and score those videos at the end. And I have to have those grades in on that following Monday. So that's the only time that we have them due early. Okay. Just a moment, I'm going to go over and switch my screen over and share the syllabus with you, kind of look at some of the assignments. We'll talk about those. I'll show you where to sign up for the groups on the very first project we'll have is a group assignment. And everybody's probably thinking, oh my gosh, what do we have to do that? But we usually, each of our courses usually has one group assignment in there. And the reason we do that is to get you used to working with different people in special education. And being a SPED teacher, you know that you're going to have to learn how to work with multiple people. That's part of being on the multidisciplinary team, right? Having to deal with a lot of different personalities and learn how to do that. You only have that one assignment for this class. And it's what we call the group interview project. Okay, so you guys, once you self-enroll in a group, each one of you will have a part to contribute to the assignment. After that, everything's done individually. Okay, so the rest of the assignments will be individual. Okay, any questions so far before I kind of clear questions? All right, I'm going to screen and get a syllabus. Sometimes my computer's slow, so it may take just a moment for it to show up on yours. And everyone hits my screen. Is it visible on your end? On the syllabus, I see it. Okay, all right, I see a thumbs up. Always ask because I sometimes assume that it's up and I just start in and everybody's kind of looking at me. So again, this is in shell, but I just want to ask things to make sure you understand if it's on here because I've already had a couple of questions on this itself. So you'll see each week, we will meet every Tuesday on Zoom, or I will have it available if you can make it. The recording's there, so we've already covered that. 6 o'clock. Okay, every Tuesday, 6 o'clock. We do Zooms, and they're in here on both. So you're really your first assignment this week is simply going in and doing the introduction. Or there's a prompt in there, but it just asks you to introduce a few questions we respond to, basically get a background. Okay, so that's one of the probably the only discussion board that you'll have to do for this class. Okay, and that's just simply doing the introduction. So that's due this Sunday. You can see by 11:59. It's midnight. And the readings in a course shell that'll direct you through your readings is dealing with assessment laws, ethics, and issues. And so next week, I will really get into a lot of that. I'll kind of backtrack next week since tonight's more focused on the course itself and the syllabus and the assignments. So I'll kind of backtrack next week. I've got some PowerPoint slides. I'll go over basically some of the assessment laws and the ethics that we get into in the testing process. And then I will also share and talk about different types of assessments with the slide deck. So we'll go through that next week as well. But you can kind of see what we're looking at the first 2 weeks. Okay, I want to point something out to you, and we're going to talk a little bit and focus on this tonight, is looking at that interview report. So that will be due on the 16th. And once I kind of get through this, I'm going to show you where you can sign up. And I'm going to encourage you ASAP after this Zoom meeting to go on and self-enroll in a group and go ahead and start communicating with your group members, because this assignment will slip up on you pretty quick before you know what's going on. So it's going to ask you individually within your group to do some interviewing of a particular individual that you select. Could be your uh, veteran SPED teacher in your district. It could be a school psychologist, a psychometrist, someone that's been in the special education field. And there is a list of questions I'm going to show you. It's in the syllabus that you're going to ask them. And then once you get that, you're going to mesh your answers with your group members to create one document. Okay. And I will show you those guiding questions when we get down to it. Okay. So you'll see once the interview report starts, the very next week after that, you will have your first individual assignment, which is an assessment report and a lesson plan over the data and information you collect from administering some informal assessments. Okay. So every time we learn how to start administering some assessments, and I mentioned we'll have the informal, the norm reference, and the CBM, you're going to take the data and the information you collected and put it into a report. And I've got sample reports in the course shell that will show you exactly the format to use. Okay. And then you're also going to build some plan to go with it. For you to use. And it's based off information specifically from the informal assessments. Nothing else, just the data and information you collected basically from the weaknesses you get by the student. Okay. So that will be in week 3. Week 4, you'll see there's nothing to do right here. It's blank. I'm kind of hovering my cursor over it. You can see that. So you have a little breathing room there. Okay. The following week, we'll get into talking about week 5, some norm reference assessments. We'll be talking about that. And that's why I'm going to kind of have to maybe help you guys along, because as I mentioned, the norm reference, a lot of them that are out there require extra credentials or certifications to be able to administer those. Okay. Let's see, that's due on the week of July the 7th, or that Sunday. So it would probably be wise, and I will nudge you along the way, especially there in week 4, to think about going ahead and starting that process, knowing that week 5 is a holiday week, right? With the 4th of July, it's going to fall right there in the middle of the week. July 6th, you'll see, I'm sorry, week 6, July the 8th through the 14th, you'll have another off week. Okay, as we're starting to talk about some other formalized assessments in the form of curriculum-based measurements. And you'll already have started that process. So, and I always say this with every class, once we start the first night, by the way, around week 5, coming out of week 4, going into week 5, we're going to have a little bit of overlap on some things that you're doing in this class, and you go, oh my gosh, we haven't even finished one, and Dr. Posey's already going, and we're already starting another one, and we hadn't even really finished the other one. Okay. Remember, don't let it overwhelm you. We can get through it, but you will have some overlap right there. We're talking literally about 2 tests at the same time. And as we get closer to that week 4, I'm going to remind you, hey, do you remember the conversation we had week 1? I told you we'd come to a point where we overlapped. We're at that point. Okay, so as we get there, I'll remind you, but just know you're going to have some overlap right around the end of week 4, going to week 5, getting ready for norm reference and CBM. And you'll see curriculum-based measurements will be due down here, and you think, how will it overlap? Because it shows that we've got 2 weeks. The reason is this curriculum-based measurement report, we ask you to collect 4 to 6 data points And what I mean by that is that CBM is a short, quick to easy, or quick to administer assessment. It's kind of a little bit more just above an informal. So it's a way to administer an assessment on a particular skill set to quickly gauge the student's knowledge. We're going to ask you to do that at 4 to 6 times to get data points, and we're going to record those. In order to do that, you really need to start that back up here on this week 5. That way you can do, 1 or 2 a week over about a 3-week period versus trying to cram them all in right here at the end of week 6, going into week 7. Okay. Again, as we get closer to that time, I will start reminding you and kind of walking you through, but I'm just trying to give you the overview of it tonight. As you will see, all those due dates are on Sundays. Here's what we get into as we go from week 7 to week 8. You guys know these are 8-week sessions. Week 8 for us is a short week because on that Wednesday is when your final assignment is due. It's the final for this class. It's not you're going to have to go in and take this big long multiple choice test, 50 questions. This is practical application class. Okay, so you're not going to have that type of test. Your final is doing a mock IEP video, but you're going to be using all the data that you collected from all these different assessments. So as the class progresses, you're building all your data bases and your information, and you're going to already have it in hand, and literally you're going to sit down and present it as if you were in a AP meeting, but you're going to be using all the data you collected during the CBM, the norm reference, and then formal. Okay, so literally you're just sitting down and presenting it. School's not in session, I know that. I get it. You can do this at home at your kitchen table, in your home office, in your classroom, and you're going to act like there is a multidisciplinary team there with you. I mean, literally, you're going to introduce them if they're there with you, and you're just going to go right through the information like you're explaining it to the parent. Okay. We have a format for you to follow. That's what your final is. Okay. Literally, you're just presenting the information you've already collected in the first 7 weeks of this course. So you may be thinking, oh my gosh, there's a lot to it in 8 weeks. There's quite a bit to it. We've taken a lot out of it. Okay, we've taken a lot out of the course. There was probably too much in it at one point in time, but once we switched to the 8-week formats, we did go in and we really took out some of the things that we really felt like probably was not as pertinent to what you needed. So this is doable. It's 1 week at a time is what I always tell them. Just concentrate on that 1 week until we get to that overlap ending week 41 into week 5. And then you're having to think about 2 different assignments at the same time. Other than that, if you do 1 week at a time, you're going to be fine. Okay, we've done this multiple times, 8-week formats. Students do just fine. Okay. One thing I will say before I move on to the next thing in the syllabus, I understand you guys have a lot going on. Life happens. I get that. You're working adults, you got family, activities, and all that. I know things are going to come up. The only thing really I ask of you in this class, and we talk to you guys about it in the interview process, just communicate with me. Let me know, hey, I may need a little bit extra time, Dr. Posey. I have this come up and this come up. Just email me and let me know. I'll work with you on it. Okay, but don't wait till Sunday night at 11 o'clock and then send me an email and go, oh, by the way, I had a rough week. Can I have some extra time? Okay, let me know in advance. Just communicate with me. I'll work with you. Okay. All right. Any questions over kind of the assignments and a little bit about the different assessments we're going to work with? As we get into each of those weeks, and you go, oh my gosh, I need help finding some of this stuff. Can you guide me on that? I absolutely can. I can give you a lot of different suggestions. I also, within our slide decks, there are some sites built in there that I always recommend. Hey, go to that website. It lists a lot of them, a lot of different assessments that you could pull off when we get into CBMs. I always tell everybody, look at the website, cbm.com. It will have a list of them, uh, all subject areas and all grade levels. It's there for you to pull off. So looks like I have a question. Is it Mary?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, I want to make sure that I'm understanding right. All of these assessments need to be done on the same student, correct?
If you can, it's advantageous for you if you can. It's not a have to, it's not a deal breaker if you can't due to accessibility of a student. Okay. If you have to use different students, that's fine. But I always say if you can use the same one, it's really an advantage to you because you get to see actual growth within that case study student using multiple assessments. And you kind of get to see about, hey, if I were to use all these different assessments, you can see how the assessments correlate, how there's a connection between all the different ones, and instead of just relying on one. And I'll get into that in one of the weeks on one of the lectures or one of the discussions we'll have about don't rely on one specific test, especially when it comes to determining placement of a child. That's not a good practice to do. And there's a lot of districts out there that do it. It's not good. You really need to sit down and have a lot of data to look at. You want to look and see, hey, I want to see the whole picture on this. You don't want to comment in the data, and Sarah's adamant. I'm gonna pick on Sarah because her picture's right there. I can see her. Because Sarah's adamant of this one student that's struggling and needs tested, and she's clamping down and saying, I want this kid tested. Well, when I come in, good, I can come in and do the formalized testing, but when I come back to do the MEGS meeting and start talking about it, I'm gonna ask you, it's like, hey, I need to see some other information here because I'm gonna include that in my report. I'm gonna include an overview of that student. I don't want to just rely on a formalized assessment that I came in. They don't know me from Adam, and I've got them for 3 hours, and we're going to place a student based on my result. Okay. So that's why
Mhm.
we want to look at a lot of different things. All right. Any other questions up here? So you can see the growth. I kind of went the long way around to answer that. If you can use the same student, that's awesome. If you can't, you have to use different ones. We can work with that. We can still do it. Okay. Mary, does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Down below each week breakdown, you'll see the assignments listed in the total points. Okay, I had an email, I can't remember who it was, and when they sent it, I'm like, hey, I didn't, what's the week's syllabus? And I respond and say, hey, it's in the assignment breakdown. You'll see week participation times 8. In live, if you can't, watch the recording, it's many answers to the questions will be there over the recording. Introduction. That's your first thing that's due. It's due this Sunday, okay? It's just really a simple introduction of yourself. There's some guiding questions on there. Then looking at the interview report. That's a group project that I talked about. And I'm going to show you guys where to sign up for that in a minute. Okay. So that takes 100 points. The next thing after that, all the following assignments are all done on an individual basis. Informal assessment report with a lesson plan. 2 weeks later, you'll have a norm to reference test report with a lesson plan. That lesson plan, again, each time is based on the weaknesses you saw on that particular assessment. Okay. CDM administration, where we're getting 4 to 6 data points. You'll look and Sarah's going to pick out the weaknesses of that student and build a lesson plan around that for CBM. You'll see this one is weighted more than anything because it takes longer to do. You're having multiple test administrations, at least 4 to 6. Each time you do it, it should take with the CBM no more than 5 to 7 minutes max, but you're having to do it multiple times, collect data, and we're having to build some different tables to represent our data within the report. Okay, so it's a little bit more time consuming, a little bit more in depth. That's why it's weighted more. Your final exam is the mock IEP video. Okay, as I mentioned, if you look at the breakdown on this, you won't see any multiple choice test that you do. It's all practical application. Okay. Peer assessment collaboration. This item here, guys, is tied into your interview report. So, Sarah, let's say that Mary and Zach are in your group. Okay. You guys are working together. At the end of that, each one of you is going to be asked to complete a peer assessment. And so on that form, you're going to list Zach's name, you're going to list Mary's name, and you're also going to include yourself, Sarah, and you're going to rate yourself as well. And there is about 4 to 5 categories, and you're going to rate their contribution to those categories on a scale 0 to 4. Okay, your observation of working together in a group. Okay. So for the interview report, you guys will all contribute to one single paper. So Sarah, Mary, and Zach, you guys are going to collaborate, put all your information into one report, and one of the 3 of you are going to submit that. Just one of you will submit it. And it will tie the other 2 to the person that submitted it because you are signed up in a group. So all 3 of you don't have to submit it, but each of you will submit a peer assessment rubric. That's the only thing you will submit individually for that interview report. That makes sense? Okay. All right. I'm going to go down real quick and I'm going to show you the guiding questions for the interview report. Okay. And this is all in your syllabus. So on page, okay, on page 7, you're going to see group paper interview. It's due at the end of week 2 on Sunday at midnight. You'll see it right there. It's going to give you a little breakdown here. You're going to self-enroll in a group, which I'm going to show you where to do that before we get off here. So you're going to self-enroll. There needs to be at least 4 members, if possible. You won't have any more than that. I've got it set to where one group can't have 7 members. I've got a cap of 4 members on each of those groups, okay? If you have 3 in there, that's fine. You just cannot have more than 4 the way it's set up. Okay, so you're going to analyze, evaluate some of the information that you gather from doing your individual interviews. So each of your group members, Sarah, Mary, Zach, you guys, here are the interview questions. And right here with the bullet points, I believe altogether there's about 12 of them. So you're going to identify someone, whether special ed director or a special ed teacher that you may work with, could be a school psychologist or a psychometrist. And you're going to talk to them. Here's questions. Why are certain tests used? Okay, why are certain tests used in the district? Your district, Sarah, may have specific tests that they like to use, and they stick to those. If you have your own school psych, they might only use a WJ4 to determine initial placement. They may not want to use anything else, or they may have 2 or 3 that they use. Why does the district do that? Why do they choose to do it? Just kind of get them information there. How often or how often are they used, or when are they used? Okay. The WJ4 is used for determine initial placement or reevaluations on the WJ4. Or they may say we use these, and they name off specific informal assessments. We use their ongoing. We do that to determine strengths and weaknesses, to do interventions before we even think about into formalized testing for placement. Okay, your district may use MTSS, others may use another form of intervention. Okay, MTSS is a popular method. The next question, who can administer formal and informal tests? Does this person administering those assessments need any special training? So a lot of your norm reference, they require formalized training, additional certification, the WJ4. I just mentioned that. Not anybody can use it. You gotta have some special credentials. So ask them about the informal and the formalized and who can administer them in the district and get their feedback. Ask if informal tests are used, and if so, when and why they are used. If they're not used, ask why. Again, informals go along with the MTSS process, multi-tiered systems of support, interventions. And a lot of times they'll use them to gather data. You may have some assessments that are used in the district for benchmarking purposes. A lot of districts use map testing. I don't know if that sounds familiar to you or not. Some districts might use star reading and math to do some benchmarking where they give that 3 or 4 times. Okay. Next question. Various assessments used in special education and why? You might ask them, what are the various assessments that you use in the special education department within the district and why? What's the difference between formal and informal? Have them give you some examples. What would be the difference between formal and informal? What are the steps in the assessment process? So is it simply Sarah comes to the director and says, hey, I want Johnny Joe to do something? How that works? No, it doesn't. There's a lot of steps you go through. Okay, so ask that person to explain what are the steps involved in the assessment process, especially getting them to the formalized for initial placement. Ask them section IDA that addresses assessment. What are some different sections in IDA that specifically addresses assessment? What is the role of the family in the assessment process? Okay, talk to your person you're interviewing. How involved do they have the family? You hope that they're very involved in it. You don't, you want them to have an active role in it. I mean, they definitely need to be part of the team. So what method of assessment for students who speak other languages? Okay. I don't know if you have students in your district that speak multiple languages or have that, I don't know how diverse your district is. Some of you may not have any diversity at all, and you can just note that in your report. Others, you may be in a certain part of Kansas. We've had graduate students that were right on the Oklahoma Kansas line out where the Oklahoma Panhandle is, and they would send them over across the line to work in the processing plants out around Guyman. Well, those districts on the Kansas side, they had multiple languages that were spoken in their districts. So if I come in and do the formal testing, I got to be prepared for that. I need to know that before I come in. One of the things that we got to do is find an interpreter. Because if I don't have an interpreter or some way to communicate with them, and I come in and give them the test and assume they can understand me, that test is not going to be valid. It's not going to be reliable. Okay. What are some technological considerations when administering tests? What are some things that they have to take into consideration regarding technology? Do we have any students that might be hard of hearing? That we need to have some additional technology to make sure that they understand what I'm saying in that. So talk to your person about that. And just any evaluative comments or remarks that the interviewee might want to share based on their experience. Okay. It's really interesting when we do this assignment. And when I look at a particular group, keep talking about Sarah, Mary, and Zach because their names right there. But within their group, if they were together, Sarah's person might have 20 plus years. Mary, her individual, may have 5, and Zach's might have 12. So you have a wide range of experience. So it's really interesting to see when the groups merge their information together, the range of experience that's there. And it's when you start collaborating with your group members, you can learn a lot just by hearing some of the feedback that they received. Sarah might be working in a larger district like Shawnee Mission or Kansas City, and Mary might be in a very rural area of Kansas. So you see a big, difference there as far as experience and things that they do. So So those are the guiding questions, guys. Starts on at the bottom of page 7, the bullet points, and then it rolls over into page 8. So it looks like there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 bullet points to guide you in your questions. Okay. Down below is all the assignments are in the syllabus. It kind of has a breakdown of what we're looking for. I'm gonna go to the points. So you'll have an introduction section. There's the point breakdown, what we're looking for in that paper, types of assessment, identifying the different assessments. It's all stepped out for you right here. Every assignment is like it. You'll see a point breakdown, a rubric. So when I go to review it, I'm looking at this. This is how your assignments are scored. Every one of them's different. Okay. Any questions on that? I'm gonna, before I switch over to the course shell and show you where some valuable resources are and also where to sign up for your interview group. Any questions over the syllabus? Mary, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering on the actual assignment, it says to create a group contract before we start.
Yes,
And
it's
you
in the
want that
805.
added to our paper.
Yeah, you can copy and paste it in. I'm gonna show you where to find all that in the 805 resources. And I'll show you the tab when I switch over to the course shell.
All right,
Okay.
sounds.
One thing before I go on, just to clarify, because it always comes up every semester. When we get to the norm reference, and I just want to make it clear, and I will reiterate this as we get closer, the norm reference assessment. And I talk about a lot of the norm reference assessments, you have to have special certifications or credentials to do that. For that assignment, I am not asking you to go out and find that type of assessment and administer that without the proper certification. By no means am I asking you to do that. I'm going to ask you to work with someone perhaps in your district that has the ability to administer it. If not, I've got the alternate assessment to complete the requirements of the assignment on here. But I would never ask you as a graduate student to go and do something when you don't have a certification to do it. And it never fails. I get feedback on the course evaluation at the end that the instructor expected us to go do that. It's unethical. I've never asked anybody to do that. And I give the same spiel on the first night of class. We are not expecting you to go do that by any means. It's unethical, not asking you to. We're asking you to work with someone that has ability to do it. If you can't find that someone, I will help you do that. There's a video of a testing session on there that you can use. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that. Okay, I'm going to start my screen share and I'm going to go over to the course shell and kind of show you where some important resources are really quickly before we finish up. If you'll bear with me. It's a lot of information. I kind of want to share and understand where to find some of the pertinent. So I'm actually taking earlier. I have C, D, and E. I just popped up C in class. So let's sit down there, tab in there, the assignment tab. So you can click up here. It gives you just detailed information about the assignment itself, the interview. You can click on it here, and it'll kind of there we go. I'm gonna say my internet's slow now. So it's basically some condensed information that's taken from the syllabus I just showed you. It is here for out of convenience. Here are the interview questions itself that I just went over with scoring and the points. Okay. So on page side, that's where you find a breakdown on the information that's basically repeated from the sections in the syllabus. Then you will go down to this. This is where you will actually submit. You can sign up for your groups by clicking on the Submit Assignments Here tab, Assignment 1, you can see I created up to 7 groups. Probably won't need that many. I just created, usually I have 5. I did some extras. You can click on that. Then you will see group 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can actually pick a group and enroll. Okay, so that's what you will do.
Dr.
Excuse me?
Posey, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So on the groups tab, you said there was only up to 4 in a group.
Yeah.
So, and they're all showing 5. So like I signed up for group 1 and there's already 5 people signed up for that.
Okay, let me go back in. I might have accidentally set it at 5. I thought I had them set at 4. So I will check that. Just keep it where you're at. Okay, and if it changes, I'll send a message. Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Question real quick. When I go to submit assignments here, I don't have an assignment 1.
You don't see assignment 1 interview?
No,
No,
mine starts with peer assessment collaboration rubric.
mine is the
Okay.
same way.
Same for me too.
What section are you in?
VE.
Okay. Already know what the issue is. Okay, so after this, I'll have it fixed for you. I already know what it is.
Okay.
The not visible tab was not clicked over for that particular assignment, so already that's easy fix. Okay. Your peer assessment collaboration rubric is right there. That's where you will submit that. So as I used Cassie, Logan, you guys a while ago, so you'll each individually do that. You'll submit it right there. Your interview paper, only one of you out of the group will submit it. So Logan, you might be the designated one in your group to submit, but all your group members tied to your name. So it will show up in Blackboard that Cassie submitted, you submitted and all that. It connects all of you in your group, but only one of you need to submit the papers. Everyone understand how that works? Okay. You can see all the rest of them are going to be submitted right there. Mock IEP. It tells you the due date, everything. Another thing I want to show you is SPED 805 resources tab. That's where you're going to find a lot of your templates for assignments. You're going to also see peer assessment collaboration rubric template is there. I think Mary mentioned, if I remember correctly, the team contract. I think it was Mary that asked me that earlier. The contract template is right there. Okay. Each time that you give an assessment with your case study, you need to make sure that you submit a permission form with that assignment, even if it's the same case study student, Logan, all the way through for each of those assignments, you still need to attach that. Okay, and you can list all the different assessments on there. So for the informal, you would list what informals you're going to use when it comes up time. Okay, and we'll talk more specific on that next week, because some of you guys might need some guidance on, hey, where do I find some? What are acceptable informal assessments? Same thing you would do with norm reference and CBM. Okay, so a while ago I mentioned, hey, if you're in section BE, I know what's not showing up. There's an alternate lesson plan format. I didn't even make that visible to you guys because we want you to use this specific one when you get ready to use it. And it's the one that's visible to you. It's one that is going to become very familiar to you because at the end of the program, when you're getting ready for your PPAT, it will be the same type of lesson plan template that will be required in the PPAT. So through our courses, you're going to have multiple chances to practice using that same template. So when it comes up time to you do the PPAT, you should be well prepared for that as far as getting used to using that template form for your lesson plan. Okay. Sample reports. This in here, I'm going to click on one, sample reports. So you can kind of see. What it is, I put in a template when you get ready to do your reports for, the informal norm reference and all that. You're going to see here is the format that we would really like to see you follow. Oh, hang on, let me back up. I just saw something. Let me go back to this other folder. Okay, here we go. If you go to the one that says not sample of assessment, go to the one that says sample report right here. You click on it, you're going to see an example of an informal norm reference CBM. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. This is one of these. These are that have been previous semesters. You'll see the abstract. Identifying information. These are the categories you're going to see listed right in the rubric that I was showing you on the point breakdown that I just went over in your syllabus. Identifying information. So there's going to be specific things in there that you're going to put: the date the test was administered, what type of test it was. Then you're going to go down and talk a little bit about background information, giving some information on the student. When we do this on this, guys, we will not use the student's real name. You can use initials, you can use a pseudonym, make it made up name, but don't ever use the student's real name when we're doing these reports for this class. Okay. Tell a bit about the suspected if they've already been diagnosed or if they're suspected of having a disability. We'll talk a little bit about that, a little bit about their behavior, a little bit about their parent, or I'm sorry, their family background, if it's available. Student might be in foster care, or the student might be raised by his grandparents, anything like that you can include. Test results and interpretation, Cassie. This is where you're going to put your information based off the assessment you gave right here, the data. Okay. We're also going to list it in a narrative format. Then we're also going to concentrate on visual representation of it in the form of a table, chart, or graph for each one we do. Okay. So some of you guys may not be very comfortable doing that. You're going to learn to do it this semester in these reports. Okay. You can get just very basic, or you can get as creative as you want on this, but some way to visually represent the data you collected other than in narrative form. When I go in and I do the MEGS meeting after we've done formal assessments, I've got pages and pages of narrative information, but I also have multiple pages of a lot of charts and tables and graphs. And a lot of times when we explain it, it's pretty overwhelming to the parent, but when I can also show them charts, tables, and graphs to go along with what I'm talking about, a lot of times it helps them connect the dots and it helps them to understand what I'm talking about when I explain the results and the data. Okay, so you can do bar graphs, pie graphs, charts, however you want to do it to represent your data. Okay. You can see this particular student chose to use bar graphs. Okay, they put their headers on there. Do a little pie graph as well. This is for an informal, so your informal tables, charts, and graphs is going to be pretty basic. After that, we're going to have a recommendation section. So Cassie, based on the data you collected with your case study student, you're going to make a recommendation based on the results. You're going to provide a little summary here and a recommendation, suggestion on how to better help that student in class. Okay. Informal assessment, it's going to ask you to include copies of some of the informal assessment. This particular student used a checklist. That's an informal assessment. Okay, they had a rating scale. That's another informal assessment. Okay, there's a multitude of informal assessments that can be used. Okay, and they did a time sampling as well. And so they included examples of the informal assessments. There was 3. It asked you to use 3, and they included them in here. They also included a copy of the parent permission form. Logan, I was just mentioning there, you're going to list what your different informals are in your, see, they use the WJ4, the Woodcock-Johnson, that was their norm reference. Written expression was their CBM. Checklist, time sampling, and rating scales were the informal. Okay, had parent sign, and that's what they submitted. Okay, if you noticed for the assignment that we're doing, I did an example of each one for you as a reference when it comes up time to write those. You'll see a tab here, just so you're familiar with it. If you do not have access to the individuals that to complete the norm reference assessment, like a school psych or someone that has credentials to do it to work with you, this is the part I said don't stress over it. I have a recording of a video where I actually went in and did a reeval on a high school student. I recorded them. It's a me giving the WJ4, the cognitive, because there's a lot of interaction between me and the student. I recorded that. You can go in and view it. And then I will provide a copy of the comprehensive report that's got all the data if you need to use this as an alternate to meet the norm reference assignment requirements. Okay, so that is there as a backup if needed. And if you have to use it, it's fine. That's what it's there for. Okay.
Dr. Posey, I kind of have a question or a concern, I guess.
Sure.
With it being summer, I'm kind of worried about having access to a student.
Sure. Yep. So if you remember going back to the very beginning of this session that I mentioned about summertime tends to be a challenge in doing this class. And so if you don't have access to a student at school, if you have a neighbor that has a school age child, or if you know of a student, you reach out to the parent, make contact with them about utilizing their child. You can even do these via Zoom and work with the student, and to where you maybe have the assessment up and you do it there and you're kind of interacting that way. Okay, so there's multiple ways to do it in the summer. We're pretty flexible with that.
If push comes to shove, can I use my own child as a guinea pig?
You can. I've had different ones do that didn't have access to, so I let them use their child in the summer. Now, if it's in the fall and the spring, we're not as flexible with that, but in the summer we are. Knowing that school's not in session.
Okay.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I make my kids do a lot of schoolwork during the summer anyways.
Yeah,
So
no, that's
maybe they
fine.
wouldn't mind doing
And
something.
especially, we especially like I did this class like back when COVID and stuff was going on. So we had to be really flexible for our grad students that were going through the program, trying to keep them on track to graduate. And knowing, on any given week, half of the students on my Zoom, their school might have been shut down. Or the graduate student themselves might have been quarantined from work. And so we had to be real flexible and get really creative about doing that. So yeah, I've had some do that in the summer where they use their own student. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I also have a question, Dr. Posey, to piggyback off that. So I'm at the high school level. It's kind of hard to get high schoolers to do anything over the summer. My mom's a kindergarten teacher. Can I maybe use one of her, because she does tutoring and everything? Can I maybe?
Certainly can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially in the summer, I've had to have them do that, or maybe, working with a high school student. It's hard to get them, to do anything in the summer. They had connections with the younger student. And yeah, most certainly you can.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
And also, is that Logan? I'm sorry, did ask that question?
Yes, sir.
So Logan, I'm just going to use this example. You may be more of a math resource teacher in a high school. I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing that out there. But for this, and you need to work with, some of your mom's students at kindergarten, obviously you may have to really switch gears a little bit, and you might be focusing on basically, some basic reading phonetic things, or just very basic math, identifying numbers. And so, I mean, to really make some adjustments with the age difference compared to what you're used to working with on a daily basis. And I'm sure your mom can kind of help you along on that and kind of give you some guidance.
Yep. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, so if we use our own child to do it, how do we fill out the parent permission form?
You still fill it out, you'll put the test on there, just like the example I showed you, and then you'll sign it. But if you're using your own child, just like any other child, just use a pseudonym, initials, whatever, same thing, but you'll just sign it. Okay? And you'll still submit it every week, even if it's the same student, still submit that permission form as part of it. You'll see there's points tied to it, even though it's the same kid, still do it. And that way you're getting those points and you don't get deducted on that, because those are simple, easy things to get points to help in case you miss something up on the rubric. Okay. Any
Sir, I have a
questions?
question. If we're gonna test our own child, we don't need to turn into the permission form, or do you want us to do that just for the practice
You
of
do,
doing it?
yeah, you still need to go ahead and do it because there's points tied to that, even though it's your own
Okay.
kid. Yeah, still go
Yeah.
ahead and sign it. Yeah,
Okay, but we just sign it ourselves and call it good.
you'll sign it yourself, but don't use,
Cool.
use a pseudonym for your child, or just use their initials, but you can sign it.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Thank you.
I want to just share real quick on that Sunday. So a lot of basic information I covered tonight. So next week when we meet, I'll have PowerPoints pulled up, slide decks. I'll go through and really talk a little the high points on various assessments and things that we're focusing on for that week. So remember next week, which is week 2, and I mentioned this at the very beginning of the Zoom session tonight. Next week, I'll kind of double back and hit a slide deck and focus on some of the week 1 content and in week 2. So we'll kind of double up. It won't extend class that long, but we'll cover kind of those first 2 weeks as far as some of the content. Any other questions?
I have a hard time finding the tab to get in the groups. It's not showing up at all on my Blackboard.
What section are you in?
I am the 805 DE. Sorry, you cut out. I couldn't hear you.
Sorry,
I can't tell
Jordan,
if it's
did
my
you
internet
ask?
or your.
I'm not for sure. It may be mine. Did you say, are you E or D?
VE.
DE. It may be the same glitch on the other area of VE. So I'll switch over to that. And let me see if that'll take care of it. It's down there where it says submit assignments here, group interview, and you'll see a deal that says groups. Okay. So let me look at that.
Yes.
You can shake your head no. Are you VE? Okay.
E.
Yeah, I
Let's
got you.
see.
So I'll switch over to that, Jordan, and fix it after I switch over, because I think I know what it is. I'm pretty confident I do. Okay. Any other questions before we go? Everyone good? Okay, in those sections, I know C and D, you should be able to see that group button that I just showed you because I was using section C a while ago. I would encourage you to go on and go ahead and get signed up for that group and start looking at identifying who you're going to interview and start getting ready to ask those questions. And I will go on after I get off this Zoom and go into section BE and see if I can get that for you guys quickly so it won't hold you up. Okay. Guys, if you have questions, one other thing real quick before we go, I always check my email twice a day, my Fort Hays account. I'm an early morning guy, so a lot of times I will pop on there and start checking it about 6 a.m. Usually by 7:30, I've already rolled on to my other stuff. Okay. So I check it then I always check it sometime right after 5 p.m. the same day. So those are my 2 times. So if you email after about 7:30 or 8 o'clock, I will catch you on my afternoon when I'm checking it. Okay. So always check those twice a day. If you have trouble locating some or you have a question the next few days over anything in that course shell, please reach out to me by email. Okay, and that way we can help you locate what you need. All right. Okay, I know that was a lot of information tonight, this basic course stuff, so I appreciate it. Appreciate your time this evening and look forward to what you do this course. And I will plan on seeing you back here on Tuesday next week. Okay, you guys have a good rest of the week.
Thank you.
Rosie.
Take care.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Dr.
Posey.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you,
night.
Thank you,
Posey.
sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Posey.
Yeah.
I had emailed you a couple weeks ago just in preparation, just to remind you I'll be on my honeymoon and I'm pretty positive I'll get everything turned in early. That way, like you're not having to give me extensions. So just